Welcome to the Let Them Live podcast with Emily Burning, a place for meaningful conversations, real stories, and a shared mission to protect life. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today, I am plugging along. I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I'll be coughing and sniffling. But I think that it's all about the content that matters. It's about the message that matters that we have coming out today. And I'm really excited because today we have Brittany Poppe, and she actually reached out to us or out to me on email. And she shared a little bit about herself. So I'd love to share a little bit and then have her just come in and tell her own story. So she's the host of Does God Forgive Abortion podcast. And that's just really amazing because she has her own abortion experience that I think that she will be able to share and just share her journey through that. Her podcast has over 13,000 downloads, which is amazing. It's listened to in over 18 countries, and globally it ranks in the top 2%, which I think is amazing. And I think that title is a really good title because that's a question a lot of people have is, does God forgive abortion? And it has a unique focus on helping women who have chosen abortion in their past, and so that they can partner with God and heal their hearts. And that's something that we are all about at Let Them Live. If you have followed us or you know us, like our heart is with women, and that includes women who have had abortions and coming alongside of them and helping them to release the shame, release the guilt, and find healing and forgiveness. So Brittany just loves to encourage and inspire people who may be listening to this, who might be suffering from the pain of abortion. So I think her story is going to encourage people on how you can be people who've had abortions and how you can be pulled back into the Lord's grace and how you can be pulled back into the love of the Lord. So anyways, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let Brittany talk for herself. What's up, Brittany? Thanks for being on.
Hey, Emily. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so you've been following Let Them Live for some time, I understand,
Mhm.
and that's how you found us and like reached out to us. So, I would love to hear before we get into your story, just kind of how you found Let Them Live and just your take or opinion on the work we do and how you've seen that just come full circle with your own experience or with the work that you do with helping women who've had abortions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I came across Let Them Live a couple of years ago. I had just gone through my post abortion healing, and I just felt like God was calling me into the pro life mission field, specifically to help women who've had abortions heal from them and find redemption and forgiveness. But I decided I was going to look and, try to support other pro life organizations. And so I came across Let Them Live, and I just love what you guys do. One of the things I read when I was kind of looking into what you do, you talk about how you want to solve the problem that the abortion minded woman has. And I think that some of us will think of a specific solution to that, and that might not be her solution. And so you guys really just like have such a heart for women, like you just said a few minutes ago. And I noticed when I was looking at your, I think it was on your website, or maybe it was on your Instagram, but I remember specifically seeing something about how we uh, love women who still haven't chosen life. Like our hearts are with them. We want to help them too. We want to point them towards resources to help them. And that's such a full circle ministry. I think that's just beautiful and amazing what you do to help women choose life for their babies, and then also extend that grace to those who maybe just unfortunately didn't do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
I've seen that. It is really sad, and we have seen this happen where, we'll be counseling a mom and sharing with her just about abortion, if it calls for that, or just sharing how we can help her. She ends
Mhm.
up having the abortion, and it's
Mhm.
so heartbreaking because we have had this happen so many times where she has the abortion and then she comes right back and contacts
Mhm.
her counselor and says, I should have listened to you. And it's immediate. Now, there are women where it takes some time, it sets in, and maybe it's a year later, maybe it's 2 years later, or whatever, that they say, I really shouldn't have done that. I'm hurting. And it's so heartbreaking. And I think in that moment, there's so many people, and honestly, maybe years ago I would have been this person that would have been like, "Oh, I told you so." But that's not what we're called to do, right? So in this moment, we do have an option. Our counselors have an option to kind of go the "I told you so" route, or the showing God's grace, like what the forgiveness and the grace that we're given, right? Grace is receiving something we don't deserve. Mercy is not getting something that we do deserve. And extending that, if we receive that, we should extend that. And so opening our arms and our hearts to these women who end up having those abortions and they're hurting and they regret it, and giving them showing them the path to the resources that can help them heal. And that makes a huge difference, because if they get pregnant again, they're thinking about coming to let them live, and
Mhm.
they know that there's going to be someone there that's going to love them, or here that's going to love them. So it was really just cool to hear you say that, because it's so true. And I think the pro-life movement as a whole, maybe this is a question for you. How do you think the pro-life movement as a whole has done in the past, currently, with embracing post-abortive women? What could we be doing better? What's your take on that, as someone who's been through it yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I think it's getting better. W I I don't think people realize how many women are around them that have had abortions. And
Mm,
so the things they say, I don't even think are necessarily incorrect or
mhm,
wrong, and even probably should be shared. We have to share the truth about what abortion is, or we're never going to get to the end goal of ending abortion. We won't change hearts and minds without sharing the full truth. However, there are times in certain pro life gatherings, or even just like a casual conversation with your friends who are pro life but maybe don't know your history, and they'll say something like, "I don't know how a woman could ever do something like that," or "That is so disgusting. Women who do that are terrible." And they don't realize that there is a woman right next to them who did do that. And while abortion is awful, that woman now feels like she's being defined by what you are saying. And it's
mm,
going to prevent her from finding that help. And so I think that is getting better, though. I see a lot of that changing, at least from what I look at. Especially like what we were just talking about with "Let Them Live." That rhetoric is not a part of what you guys talk about at all.
mm,
You share the truth and love very well, and I've seen that a lot too, kind of coming to the surface. But I think in the past, because it's such a taboo thing, a lot of women aren't just openly, especially women who have shame and regret, aren't just
yeah.
openly sharing this about themselves.
Yeah, you bring up such good points. I mean, specifically, the first thing was that so many women around us have had abortions, and a lot of them are suffering in silence. They may not have shared that yet. They may not be ready to. They may have the shame and the guilt. I mean, I've personally talked to women who are 70, 80 years old, and they still carry that. So I think
Yeah.
that's important for us to remember. It's interesting because a lot of like abortion advocates share the statistic that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 or whatever women have had abortion, that have had abortions, and they use that to try to support abortion. But I actually see that as a huge problem, in of the like a problem in that there's women that are suffering. So 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, I can't remember what the updated statistic is. That means that there's women around you that have had abortions, that who knows where they're at in their journey with that. The other thing that what you were saying made me think of was that we in a sense, it's hard to do this, I think, for a lot of people, but maybe you can talk about this, separating the in general, separating the person from their like sin or their action, right? We see that a lot. Like it's love the sinner, hate the sin, right? That has to be applied to abortion as well. And I think that sometimes those two get conflated where it's like the mom, the woman who had the abortion is not separated from the act of the abortion. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And look, I know there's women that are going out there and they know what an abortion is. They're like, yeah, I'm having an abortion. But that's just not the majority of women. The majority of women actually have no idea what they're doing. The doctor does, right? The doctor, the abortionist knows exactly what they're doing. But how do we separate that out? And how do we share that with people who have a hard time separating that out?
Yeah. So I think in conversation, definitely not being afraid to share the truth, but then also adding the gospel in there and
Mm,
saying, something to the effect of, uh, yes, abortion is wrong, but God can forgive those who have chosen that in the past, because you never know who's going to be around you that maybe has, done that. And so you want to make sure you kind of leave them with a hope there that they know that you don't think they're terrible.
mm.
It's just, like you said, separate the sin from the sinner. We love the person. And two, yeah, just really making sure that you're educated on the different healing pathways for women and men, because that's talked about even less.
Yes.
um, the men that need the healing too. Yeah. Mhm.
100%. Men absolutely need healing. And they need that direction as well. I think that's really good points. And this actually, see, I haven't even gotten into your story yet. I just have so many questions. We'll get there, I promise. Something that I had been pondering was, okay, you mentioned bringing the gospel into it. Is it even possible to find healing, like that weight lifted type forgiveness and healing from abortion? Like, and that's got to be a heavy one, right? Is it even possible to find that without having faith? This is a conversation I've had with
Mhm.
people, and even more recently, I was like, I noticed that every single post abortive ministry, right? There's a faith element to it, or not even just an element to it. That's what it is. Um, I just can't imagine that there's any other way. So I don't know if this is like something you've ever thought of, but I'm like, how do people who are like atheist, for example, find healing? Does that make sense? I don't know. Questions in my head.
Yes. Yes. So I don't believe that you can find full and total healing without Jesus.
Same.
Uh, I just, I don't, I can't comprehend that. And I think that too, when we look at why God created us, He created us for fellowship with Him. And so I think there's this instinctive desire in our hearts to want something more and want a relationship with our Creator. Some of us just maybe don't understand the full depth of that and
Mhm.
maybe go to other things.
Yeah.
Like atheists maybe go to something else. But I think if we were to sit down with them and truly talk with them, they would have some sort of desire.
Yeah.
Or even to, I heard a woman talking about how she is an atheist and she has lost a child, and she's pro life. And she lost her child through miscarriage, and she said how hurtful it was in grief and loss groups when Christian women would say, "I'll see my baby again," because she said, "I don't have that hope because I don't believe I
Mm,
will." And
that's
that just broke my
heartbreaking.
heart. Yes.
Breaking.
And I can understand why that would be so hurtful for her to not have that, to not
Mm,
believe that she has that hope. Um,
wow.
I think the hope that we have in Jesus and in eternity is truly the key to healing from anything that we.
100%. Yeah, and maybe that's the way that people find him as well. Like, I just can't imagine. I mean, the work that we do is heavy, it's tough. Like, if I didn't if I didn't have my faith in a way to, like, not carry it all on me, oh, I'd be totally done for. You know what I mean? So, that's a really interesting thing. And maybe if you are someone who's had an abortion and you don't have a faith or whatever it is, like, maybe just talk to a friend, right? Like, if you're
Mhm.
feeling that, I can't imagine, you probably just want to, like, get that off your chest at the very least. And maybe that person, like, reach out to, there's so many resources. Like, I'm sure you can reach out to, like, one of the organizations we partner with is She Found His Grace. Reach out to them. You could probably just immediately be like, hey, I'm an atheist, but I had an abortion and I'm hurting. They're not going to turn you away. In fact, you may actually find even more than just healing by doing that. So that's such a good point. Um, so let's talk about your story. Like, tell me, however much you're comfortable with, um, but please share, you know, just how you found out you're pregnant, reactions from you, your family, how old were you, just as much as you're comfortable with. I think it would be really encouraging for people to kind of hear your story and then hear your post abortive testimony as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was about 15 years old, I had been raised in a loving Christian home. Both my parents uh, taught me about the sanctity of life. I knew what abortion was from a really young age. But when I was about 15 years old, my dad had been battling this terminal illness. He was a Vietnam veteran. And he lost that battle when I was 15. And that was kind of a moment where instead of leaning on the faith foundation that my parents had raised me with, I kind of started to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I've
And
been there too. Just,
yeah.
there's no judgment here. Raise your hand if you've done that. Yes, for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yep. And yeah, I did it in secret because of how I'd been raised.
Mm.
My mom was very plugged in, was always looking at my cell phone text message history. I mean, not incessantly, but enough to where she knew what was going on. She would look at my social media. She was
Yeah.
not oblivious
Yeah.
to what I was doing. And I still even was able to hide what I ended up creating a double life for myself.
Mm.
And, so I started dating this boy that my mom, had kind of given a chance, but he just was very rebellious. She had told him that he needed to bring me home at 11 p.m. and not even 5 minutes later. And he brought me home at 11:05 on our first date. And so she said that right there was him telling me that he wasn't going to listen to my rules. And so she told me I couldn't see him anymore. And I continued to see him in secret. I even went so far as to purchase one of those pay as you go phones. It was a little flip phone that was kind of back when smartphones, touch screen were kind of becoming a thing. Um, and so I
I
had a
had
little,
one of those little
yeah.
track phone, pay the minutes as you go. Yep.
Yes, yep. So I just kind of devised all of my little schemes on that cell phone. And after about a year and a half of that, I found out that I was pregnant. And that moment, I knew I could not hide what I had been doing anymore because you can't hide a pregnancy for very long and you can't hide a baby. Um, and instead of doing the right thing and coming to my mom and letting her know about all I had been doing, I went on my other cell phone that was the smartphone, um, and started looking on Google for, can I have an abortion even though I'm a minor? And what I found was really actually alarming to me now today. I have a daughter, and just the idea that she could go and have an abortion without me ever having to know alarms me.
That's
But I
horrible.
know that she can because that's exactly what I did. I found
Yeah.
information about this law called judicial bypass. Uh,
Yes.
Yeah. So I was raised in North Dakota. I still live in North Dakota. We have very pro life laws, but we still had a judicial bypass law, which is a loophole for parental consent and notification. In fact, every single state, with the exception of Tennessee, who has parental notification or consent laws for abortion, actually also has judicial bypass. So it's a very real issue.
It's crazy because
Mhm.
it's like a side shoot here, but, like, there
Mhm.
are so many things you cannot do as a
Mhm.
minor without your parents' consent, but you can have an abortion. Like,
Mhm.
that's, like I think that's something that should be, like people on both sides of the aisle should be like, "Okay, there's alarms going off," but I digress.
Exactly. I agree with you. Yes. And so when I found that out, that was my clear ticket. I could continue to live my double life. I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. I called the facility and kind of asked them some questions about how that would work, and they assured me that it would be super quick and easy. And I had some apprehension because I did have to meet before a judge, and they assured me, "Oh no, we take care of that for you. It's very simple." And it was. I mean, they had me come early so that they could drive me over to the courthouse. And it really was just like a 5-10 minute conversation with this judge.
Wow.
And yeah, when we were driving over there, the woman who accompanied me looked at the docket and saw the name of the judge and said, "Oh, good. I'm so glad that we got him. The other guy likes to ask too many questions." And I think back to that and I'm like, yes, he should ask more questions. I
Right.
was 17 years old. And now when I say that, I do take responsibility for my choices. I take full culpability in I
Right.
knew what I was doing. I was 17, I knew what I was doing. But at the same time, as a minor, there should have been
More pro
questions
there
and
should have been more
protections.
protections, yeah,
Mhm.
100%. At
Yeah.
any point during this, before you had the abortion, was there any part of you that was like, "Oh, I'm not sure," or were you pretty much just like, "You know what? Like, it's just happening," and everything kinda just happened?
My heart was pretty hard, at the time. However, I do remember one night in particular because I had about, like, a week or so at home from between when I found out I was pregnant until the abortion, and so
Mm,
I had to live with that secret for about a week. And I
mm,
remember one night in particular, I was sitting watching TV with my mom and hearing this voice saying, "Just tell her." And I just could not bring myself to do it.
mm,
So I know that was God just saying, just tell her
yeah,
it's going to be okay. And I just kept my heart hard and just kept trucking forward.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's just tough, and I think it's actually something so important because we do help, teen moms, underage, minor moms, um, like, if you are in a situation where you feel like you can't tell your parent, right? There are some where they do tell their parents and it's all good. There's some where they tell their parents and it is not good, but there is a place, whether it's your pregnancy center near you, let them live, whoever it is that you can tell, and we'll work through that because I can't imagine being 17, 16, 15, however old all these girls are when, they find out they're pregnant. I mean, you're just trying to get through like normal life, your hormones and school and all that stuff, and then you're dealing with this secret. So that must have been so tough, to feel like you're just kind of, yeah, stuck in heart, like your heart was hardened. And so how far along were you when you had the abortion? Do you want to talk about that at all? It's okay if you don't. I know it's like different for every person. So,
Yeah, yeah. I was 6 weeks along. I chose to have the surgical procedure because I was afraid to I didn't know what to expect with the either. method, but I didn't like the idea of completing the abortion at home because my whole reason for wanting to have the abortion was to hide it from my mom. And I was really afraid that I was going
Mhm.
to have some sort of physical complication either way. And so I
Mhm.
actually even asked my best friend if I could stay at her house that night because
Mhm.
I was afraid that my mom would have to, I really thought that something bad was going to happen. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Where I mean, I can definitely understand that. What was the reaction from your best friend, from the father of the baby, like the people kind of surrounding you about the pregnancy, about the abortion, like all of that?
Yeah, so the father did not want me to have an abortion.
Mhm.
He wanted us to get married and raise a child together. So I was a senior in high school. He had graduated the year before and he was
Mhm.
working. Um, and his mom had him when she was a teen. And he said, we can do this. It'll be okay. And I just was like, no, this will not be okay. And so he had kind of resigned himself to the fact that he wasn't going to be able to talk me out of it. And so
Mhm.
he decided to help me pay for it and then go
Mhm.
with me. But that definitely changed the way that our relationship was. It was
Yeah.
never the same. Um, and I do believe that he holds a lot of grief even still to this
Yeah.
day over that. As far as my best friend, she didn't really try to talk me out of anything.
Mhm.
She was very helpful in the
Right.
wrong sense.
Right.
Her sister actually called me out of school because I had to try to get an excused absence for that day. Um, and I have since reconnected with her a little bit. She's heard my podcast and heard my story, and
Okay.
she actually apologized to me and said,
Oh,
I have thought a lot over the last, however many years it's been, and I wish that I would have given you a better option, and I'm so sorry. Um,
wow.
and so that was really powerful. And I had the opportunity to apologize to her too, because
Yeah.
that was a lot for me to expect of, another 17-year-old. That was a lot of responsibility to put on her.
100%. I bet that that felt, healing as part of your
Mhm.
healing journey to recognize that on your end that, you kind of, yeah, like you said, that was a lot to put on someone else, but also for her to apologize too. So that must have helped a lot in just kind of moving it forward a little bit, and yeah. So let's talk too about, so did you when did you have, like, regret? If there was even one specific time, was it, soon after, or did it take, I mean, like I said, I know people that are still, 20, 40 years later are still holding on to it. Obviously, you're not, but when was that for you?
Yeah, so I had regret immediately. Um, And even I know this probably doesn't make sense, but even while I was going through the
Mhm.
process, I was regretting what I was doing, but just feeling
Yeah.
like I was so far into this, I have to keep
Mhm.
going. When I left the facility, the sidewalk advocates were outside,
Mhm.
and I didn't have any negative experiences with them at all. They didn't scream at me or yell at me when I walked out.
Yeah.
But there was a one in particular, he was a priest, and he and I kind of locked eyes, and
Mhm.
he just had this look of intense sorrow and grief on his face when he saw me. I was wearing my Letterman's jacket, so all of these people had to have known that I was pretty young.
Yeah.
And he just immediately knelt down and began praying for me, and that really, like, set
Yeah.
in a lot of regret and a lot of shame, and I know his intention wasn't to make me feel shame. Now I look back at that and see his compassion, but I would see that image in my mind for the years afterwards and just feel so much shame at what I
Mhm.
had done.
Yeah. Well, speaking of shame and guilt, something I hear a lot from people who support abortion, they say, well, the reason that women, if they do feel shame or guilt because of an abortion, it's not because they actually feel that way, it's because society isn't accepting of abortion, therefore it becomes a shameful thing. So the solution is we need to normalize abortion. Therefore, if we normalize it and it's more acceptable in society, then then women won't feel shame. So what is your response to that? Because I think that is the dumbest argument ever.
Yeah. You know, yeah. It's just hard to even think of words. Women who have abortions are in denial for an average of 9 to 10 years.
Wow.
And even during those 9 to 10 years, I would venture to guess if you were to talk to them, they would feel some levels of shame no matter how, like, pro-abortion they are about their
Yeah.
choice. And it's not because of pro-life people making them feel that way. It's because deep down they know exactly what they did.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to live with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can normalize something as much as you want, normalize it or attempt to
Mhm.
normalize it. But when something is wrong, I mean, this is why I think a good example, slavery. Slavery was legal, right?
Mhm.
There were people that were like, no, something's wrong. And they felt that. And I think that's the same thing, no matter how legal, no matter how much you try to normalize it, no matter what type of groups you're in and around. Like if you're someone who's had an abortion and you're surrounding yourself with people saying, oh, that was your choice, it was the best choice for you. No matter if you're in that group and you're just in, that's the sounding board. There's something inside of you that's like, even if it's tiny, right? It's like
Mhm.
something's not right. And it's biological as well. I mean, this is
Mhm.
the thing a lot of people, I mean, obviously there's like a faith element to this, but this is also biological. Like this is how we all came into the world, right? We all know the
Mhm.
birds and the bees and all that good stuff, and we all, we're womb dwellers, and that's how we all came into this world. So there's a natural process, and abortion stops that natural process. And so, of course, there's going to be, hormones and things that are going around, and all of that, and there's going to feel like something's probably going to feel wrong. Um, so yeah, I think you're right. Like it's something that is just innate. And so yeah, I really just I do not like that argument, like, "Let's just normalize it more,"
No.
It's like, I don't know, I don't think so. I think that's
No.
just gonna cause more harm, um,
Mhm.
for women. So when did you started having that regret, which it just breaks my heart thinking about this because 'cause I'm just imagining you as, um, a 17-year-old, like, just dealing with this, and the regret, especially when it's right after and or during. And that's something I would like to say that I have heard from women who have come to let them live that didn't choose life, that had the abortion. They just felt like while they were in the abortion, they couldn't say no. So maybe it hadn't started yet, or even if it's women who have taken the first abortion pill, they're like, oh, we're too deep. There's no saying no, which abortion pill reversal, there is a way to do that. But I understand that because that is something that a lot of women face and feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's it's kind of like waves. I think that once you do something so final, those feelings just kind of come at you in waves, and uh, it's hard to know where to go for that help with that grief because that's what it is. It's grief, even if you're not recognizing the loss at the time.
Yeah. So how did you find healing? Who did you do abortion, recovery or gosh, my brain is mush today. How did you find that healing? Who did you do it through? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so when about 2 months after the abortion, my mom actually found out about everything.
Oh,
Um,
wow. How did she
yeah,
find out?
so she found out about my secret relationship. My cousin had found my secret cell phone and told her about it. And then I broke down and told her about the abortion because I'd just been holding it like so like it
Yeah.
just kind of came out. She was super compassionate towards me, very upset that she wasn't allowed her basic parental rights to save me from doing something like that. But uh, Anyway, she started taking me to a local pregnancy center for counseling.
Gotcha.
She was referred to someone, and I just was not ready for it. I'm grateful that she took me to do that, but I was still kind of in my rebellious mindset, kind of I didn't do the homework that I was assigned and things like that. But I was connected with a specific woman. And she would stay in touch with me. And she had friended me on Facebook and, kind of stayed in touch with me here and there. And a few years later, she had invited me to like her ministry page. She had started a ministry called We Are Everywhere. It's a ministry that exists to equip the church and
Mm,
other people and how to reach out to women who have had abortions.
mm,
Um, and so I liked it and I would see the posts about this Bible study. And so I saw this for years. And finally, after I had gotten married and had my first child, I really was stuck in the grief and shame
mm,
because I had a lot of complications after I gave birth to my daughter, who's now 5.
mm.
Uh, Postpartum hemorrhaging. It's very possible that it's because of my past abortion. Um, and I just felt like it was all my fault, and I had all this guilt. And I would remember my friend's ministry. And, it still took a while. I mean, I ended up having another child after that even, more hemorrhaging, um, and finally reached back out to my friend and said, "I would like to help with your ministry, AKA I need help, but I don't know how to actually ask for it."
Yep, yep.
And so she, welcomed me with open arms. She was very wise. And she said, we're actually having a Bible study, a post abortion Bible study that's going to start soon. You should join us.
Wow,
And so I did. And it was very, very healing for me. I heard the gospel and understood it fully for the first time
wow.
in doing
That's
that.
amazing. Praise God for that. I mean, what a journey, and then I can't imagine too, like, experiencing 2 pregnancies after your abortion. That must have brought up a lot of stuff, right?
Mhm.
But God was preparing your heart the whole time to,
Mhm.
for that one specific time. And I think it's a really good testament and a good testimony for anyone who's listening who is post abortive. There is healing. Like, you
Yes.
don't have to carry this around, this debilitating, what I'm imagining really just all consuming pain. You don't have to carry that around. Um, what would what would you say to women, I guess, who are post abortive, who have not yet found healing? Where would you direct them? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I know that that step is so hard to even think about taking, but it's the best step that you will ever take, because God doesn't want you to live in the chains of shame and guilt for the rest of your life because of one thing you've done. And there are programs out there. It can seem like they're hard to find, but there are so many different options out there. Like you mentioned, she found His Grace. I haven't personally gone through that, but I've heard so many great things about that ministry. The Bible study that I went through is called Forgiven and Set Free. It's an amazing resource. There are people that want to help you find that healing. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this and need that healing, you could reach out to Emily and Let Them Live, and they would help you find it. Or, I would help plug you into somewhere in your area. But I think the best thing you can do is heal alongside other people in some
Mm.
sort of group or class.
Yeah.
Trying to do it alone, I tried to do it by myself, and it just didn't, it's
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it makes a huge difference when there's people who have experienced the same or similar, or just experience the pain of abortion, that you can walk with them and you can be walked with, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, so I know you had mentioned, so I would love to just quickly talk about like your podcast, because for anyone listening who wants to like listen in, where can they find you? Where can they find your podcast? How can they connect with you? Because I'm sure that you just have such an amazing platform.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so my podcast is called Does God Forgive Abortion? And I just really, each episode is really just talking about what it's like to heal from having an abortion in the past and what God says about that. And so I pray it's encouraging to those who listen. And it's available on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can find it on those platforms.
That's awesome. Yes, please listen to that, you guys. I'm actually going to share it with our counseling team if they're not already familiar with it. That way, when there are women who've had abortions and they come to us, we can share that with them as a resource, because, like you said, we're made for community, and healing through abortion, there's just no way it can be done by yourself. And so, even if just starting by listening, and even just listening to this podcast and hearing someone who's been through it, who um, then found healing, and your life is beautiful. You have 2 kids, you've got your husband, and I imagine it's an everyday thing as well. But knowing that you're forgiven has got to be just the biggest weight off of your heart.
Yes, yes, it is. And I'm so thankful for opportunities to get to share with others too, because I think it just heals another little piece of my heart.
That's amazing. Yeah, because,
Yeah.
sometimes we all go through things in our life. Life is There's going to be suffering, there's going to be pain. That's just part of life. No one's going to have a unicorns and rainbows life 100% of the time. But what makes the suffering and the pain and the hard times in our life worth it is when it comes full circle and we're able to use our experiences to help other people. So I agree with you that I a piece of me gets healed too every time I'm able to share and help someone with trauma that I've also experienced myself. Not abortion related, but I can relate to that healing piece. So I think that's so beautiful. Yeah. So guys, please go ahead and check out Brittany's podcast, Does God Forgive Abortion? Find some healing. She found his grace. Let me just double check. I always mess this up. She found his grace.org. I should know this by now. There's also, you can reach out to Brittany. You can message Let Them Live on Instagram. You can reach out to us. We can help you find a pregnancy center near you that has post abortive resources or a different course or whatever. So there's support for you. Brittany, is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share? I just wanted to give you the opportunity to do that.
I don't think so. I'm just so thankful that you allowed me to come on your show, and I just pray that it helps somebody.
Yeah, 100%, anytime. And if anyone listening would like to come on the show, if you have a story to share, if you have a ministry, like, please reach out. You can email me directly, emily.burning@letthemlive.org, or you can just, shoot a message to Instagram. I absolutely love sharing resources and stories, because that's how the Lord works, right? We are all doing a piece of his work. So yeah, thank you again, Brittany, for being vulnerable and sharing. And I hope that you get a whole bunch more downloads and listeners on your podcast too, because it's going to give so many people hope. So
Thank you so much, Emily. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
of course. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening again. I hope to see you on the next episode. I have no idea what it is, but it's going to be great. You guys take care and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Let Them Live podcast with Emily Burning. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know your thoughts in the comments and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.